Hello and welcome to another Noman industry event live at the Dell stage. Fantastic, glad to have you all here. Thank you so much for being here live, and thank you for tuning in at home. If you're looking for closed captionings, please head over to our YouTube or our Facebook page. We'll be able to take care of you there. And we'd like to take a second to thank our sponsors, Dell and NVIDIA. Without them, we wouldn't be able to bring you amazing content as you're about to see right now. Tonight, we're thrilled. We're absolutely thrilled to have CEO and co-founder of The Third Floor, Chris Edwards, in the building. The Third Floor has amassed thousands of credits over the past 20 years, from HBO Game of Thrones to Lucasfilm's latest Star Wars series to an array of current and upcoming productions across the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This presentation will showcase the past, present, and future of real-time visualization technology and how it was fundamentally altered the creative process in Hollywood and beyond. From groundbreaking pre-production tools to integration of Unreal Engine, Chris will share how visualization has evolved over the last 2 decades and where it's headed next. Be sure to stick around until the end of the show. We're going to have a Q&A, and we're going to be able to get to as many questions as we can, and then we'll be raffling off this Wacom 16-inch Cintiq. So I hope you all are very excited. Are you all excited? See, I caught you by surprise. I gave you a second one right there, but it's okay. Without further ado, please help me welcome Chris Edwards.
Well done, well done. Hi, everyone. I'm Chris. Welcome to 20 Years of Visualization, which is going to be a retrospective of my life, how it led to this crazy company that I run, some of the challenges that we went through over the years, what we're facing now, and a little bit of my take on the future. So I'm going to tell you a lot more than you've ever wanted to know about pre-visualization today. And I went into the archives and found so many oldie but goodie clips that many folks have not seen. So there should be some surprises, and I hope you enjoy it. So for me, 20 years of visualization really means 20 years of helping storytellers tell even more grandiose stories in more compelling ways. And it's true that we've actually worked on around 3,000 different projects by now over those 20 years. So we're quite prolific. I'm very proud of the crew around the world that works on this with me every day. So we're best known for 20 years of film and television production, and I think our claim to fame is that although we weren't the first previz company, I think we really did help raise the bar for the expectations of quality of the previs, of the visual fidelity. So over the years, we raised the quality such that you can get almost a one-for-one feel between the pre-production that is iteratively designed and the final frames. Obviously, this is done for a fraction of the time and a fraction of the cost on the left, and then we hand it over to not just one company, but so many artisans across many companies and crews that use it as a solid blueprint for the rest of the production. And a lot of people think that we just work on TV and film projects, but actually we do have such a good time working outside of Hollywood and in other areas, such as commercials. So there's a Super Bowl commercial. There's a good chance that we worked on it. We have also had a really rich pedigree of working in gaming. I'm very proud of our partnerships with just so many awesome AAA studios. Here's a clip showing some of the more recent work that we've done. Oftentimes we get wheeled in whenever there's a very complex set of action, an interstitial moment, an epic achievement where you want to cut to a cutscene that doesn't feel like a cutscene, but is sort of integrated into the action. So we have a lot of time, a lot of fun applying our cinematic knowledge to the gaming universe. And this is what really got us introduced to the power of the Unreal Engine, which I'll touch on later. So we've been very busy across in the gaming space, and then so only natural that when VR became a thing, we really jumped headlong into that. We created a lot of seminal works for Hollywood studios that were their demonstrations of what's possible, various companion pieces to movies, such as this one, The Martian VR Experience, which was not just a game, but actual motion chair and a whole experience where you could pretend to be Matt Damon stranded on a planet for a day. And we also, you might be surprised to know, do theme park attractions. We help work with Universal Studios quite a bit on a ton of theme park attractions, including our very first ride, which was the Despicable Me Minion Mayhem ride. And most recently, we worked on this baby. You guys can turn the music up a little bit. So, very good. Gotta love some good Mario music. So yeah, this one was awesome because we got to design the world, and we also got to design many of the attractions. So we were very busy helping the designers of the ride basically ride the ride virtually every day. So we were able to show them, you know, what it would look like if we put this here, timed it that way, and really got the blueprint for that really solid before they went to construct it. And this one was in particular a challenge because there was an AR component, or an augmented reality headset, that had never been tested. It was one of a kind. We had to figure out how to design media that would both be on the headset in a bespoke way for each of the riders, and also leap off the headset and onto the various other media screens. So it was a real big challenge. Also, I am amazed, honestly, that this thing has worked out as a business, and that we've expanded from Los Angeles, our headquarters, over to London, over to our Beijing office, and then back again to Atlanta due to tax incentives, and East Coast is cool as well. And I'm from Maryland. But for me, it's not the world domination, it's not the achievements that we do, it's the people that we get to meet along the way. So from the very outset, this was about meeting other like-minded souls and feeling very proud of the work that we're doing together. And so we do try to celebrate our achievements. We go out and you know, see the screenings of the movies that we contribute to, and we put on silly sweater parties for the holidays. We really try to make it not feel like a job. We're like every day fighting the corporateness of a company. So I think that's been what really I'm the most proud of, is this ecosystem that we've kept alive and well and flourishing artistically and technically all these years. But before all of that, there was just me. There was, like many of you, you probably had your influences, things that you were fanboys and girls of. And for me, that was Star Wars and Last Starfighter and other, you know, classic sci-fi trope. And my parents knew that I liked cinema. They knew that I was kind of an engineering brain where I wanted to tinker. So they really did support me in this pursuit, but they didn't really think that it was going to come to fruition, that my dream to work with George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and all of these guys would be attainable. But I just kept at it anyways. These are some of the guys that supported George Lucas on his first big feature beyond THX 1138. That was Star Wars, you know, A New Hope. And he got a whole bunch of eclectic artisans together, including Dennis Murin, Phil Tippett in the middle, and John Dykstra over there on the right. And you know, really amazing, multifaceted generalists that could either solve problems artistically or technically, and they put all of their skills together and made some of the amazing imagery that blew people away on that first film. And I just thought it was a really cool concept to bring eclectic disciplines together to support a filmmaker's vision and selflessly produce something that only that crew knows is going to be pretty cool, and then sort of have the shock and awe campaign of releasing that to the world and just watching it infiltrate culture. So a couple years ago, well, maybe more like 7 or 8 years ago, I won what was, I guess, a Lifetime Achievement Award in Paris for what I did. And I was like, I'm too young for a Lifetime Achievement Award. I'm not done yet. But for that, I put together a little retrospective of my life, and I thought it was a nice, concise way to tell you how it all came to pass.
Chris Edwards was born in 1974 in Maryland. The son of a costume designer and a rocket scientist, he was influenced as much by construction sets and early computer graphics as he was by art, animation, and classic cinema. One day, Chris's mom brought home a mysterious book from the local library. Industrial Light and Magic, The Art of Special Effects, showed Chris how pioneers like John Dykstra, Phil Tippett, and Dennis Muren had combined technology and art to make incredible visuals come to life. From then on, Chris's mission in life was clear. 1. Go to film school. 2. Work really hard. 3. Join George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, and other ambitious filmmakers in their pursuit of innovative visual storytelling. After graduating in 1997, Chris was hired as one of 6 3D workbook artists at Walt Disney Feature Animation, responsible for pre-planning every shot in Disney's Dinosaur. Chris's broad range of skills served him well when he was invited up to Skywalker Ranch to help enhance THX 1138, the George Lucas director's cut, on the 3rd floor of Lucas's Victorian mansion. Renovating THX to George Lucas's satisfaction was their trial by fire, and the reward for planning, acting in, and delivering more than half of the final visual effects for THX 1138 was the opportunity to help Lucas design thousands more shots for Star Wars Episode III. Revenge of the Sith. Later, Steven Spielberg joined the fray to guest direct several key Episode III action sequences via the team's unique 3D animatics process. After 2 years at the ranch, Chris inspired the majority of the 3rd floor artists to join forces as equal partners. And in October 2007, the 3rd Floor Inc. was established as an artist-driven studio in Los Angeles, California. And studio by studio, film by film, the 3rd Floor's workforce and reputation grew. From Valkyrie to the Narnia series to winning the opportunity to visualize practically every Marvel film since the original Iron Man. And yes, to return to support Lucasfilm on their recent Star Wars films and streaming series. These days, the 3rd Floor has talented teams all around the world, working on award-winning episodics such as Game of Thrones, and more than 75% of Hollywood's blockbusters each year, including groundbreaking virtual productions such as Avatar, Gravity, and Avengers Endgame. For over 15 years, Chris has promoted real-time visualization as a universal art form that can be used to efficiently design architecture, commercials, video games, theme parks, and other forms of immersive entertainment, such as virtual reality and artificial reality. Chris is perpetually passionate about the 3rd Floor serving as a catalyst for creative collaboration. And even though he is the undisputed champion of professional visualization, he's primarily focused on making the visualization process more intuitive and accessible to students and the next generation of inspired creators.
Like you guys. I couldn't have said it better myself. Filling in a little details that weren't in the video, one of my favorite memories of the ranch was that we found out while we were planning some of these reshoots to do like a renovated version of THX 1138 where we had to do set extensions and maybe add a few more characters in the background. Well, that they had such a little budget that they really wanted us to act in every part. So we got fitted for outfits. I was the robot cop because I was tall enough and skinny enough probably to fit in that. So this is me in the actual movie. I play all the parts. Nor did I get paid for that. And it was during a day when there was like a crazy thunderstorm and the power went off like right as we were doing the last shot. But I got to be directed on set by George Lucas himself. But because I was wearing like a Mexican wrestler ski mask, you know, like for the green screen, he didn't know it was me. I mean, we were friends and collaborators all before that. And so he was just making sure that I was gonna act it the right way. Like, you're a robot, right? But you're not gonna like act like a robot, right? And I'm like, I've got this. Don't worry, I've lived THX for like a year. I never told him that, so maybe he's finding out now. So what I loved about in film school and what I learned at Lucasfilm and at Disney before that, was the power of a single composition to change the hearts and minds of the audience goers. Like, you know, this moment that was done by my lead storyboard artist, head of story, Doug Leffler, was just an idea to have them kiss upside down, which is what a lot of people remember about that particular Sam Raimi, you know, Spider-Man film. But this has been a thing for a long time in cinema, really, is working on those iconic tableau compositions. And many of them are influenced by the actual technology that was available at the time, right? As you have more nimble, smaller cameras, you can do more cinema verite, more kind of handheld, like it feels real, more Saving Private Ryan style. In this case, it wasn't about the light camera, it was Orson Welles and his cinematographer Greg Toland coming up with technological ways to create a really insane amount of focus distance so that they called it, I think, deep focus, so they could have these shots where you would notice the background character feeling diminished and you know, where normally they would be out of focus. So your attention is drawn to them and the foreground simultaneously. So I just love that, where filmmakers are geeking out about things that have never been done in cinema and using that technology to showcase that. In other cases, like with George Lucas, he saw technology as a way to help him make the plan for the movie quicker and to get more of a visceral idea around how he's going to shoot this for real. So this is literally the filmmakers going and getting some of the toys from the previous movie from Empire, and it's filmmakers and visual effects supervisors playing with toys, and they could only do this because of the innovation of a tiny little camera. This is the first time that they had sensors that could video record such a small little camera. Therefore, it was small enough for the model miniature to bring it through their little cheesy diorama of Endor. Years later, on the first prequel, this was not our team, but the team that was first formed to do what I later did was tasked with a more of a multimedia process. So this was everything from storyboards to puppetry to the kid in the pod racer is like the editor's son. So it was like basically what you would do in high school while you're auditioning for film school, right? This is how grassroots this sort of collage of ideas was, but it was enough of a depiction that really helped George and his editors wrap his head around the plan. Okay, so there's me and Uncle George and Eric Carney, one of the other founders. And a lot of people think that there was maybe a script and you know, some storyboard artists, and they like just handed it to us, and then we would like paint by numbers. Well, there was no script that I saw. There was a little outline of one sequence for an opening space battle that we basically ignored, and the rest of it was all brainstormed live with George. And then in terms of storyboards, the only storyboards that existed were ones from, this is George Lucas's storyboards on the left, and this is, no, actually, this is Steven Spielberg's on the left, and this is George Lucas on the right, because George would sit at our desk and jot down ideas on napkins. So out of that, and a lot of work from the amazing art department that was on the other side of the, quote, third floor of the Skywalker Ranch house, was the, we put all those pieces together, and we made 7,000 iterations of shots together, just about 10 people doing this. So here I was working late at night, many nights. We even made ourselves a little newsletter just to make ourselves feel better about not having a social life. All of our lives were just at the ranch all the time. And so I felt after that whole experience of about 2 years total that we had such a kinship with each other. I honestly just didn't want it to end. And so I thought the only way we could keep each other together is to not give in to temptation to get individual jobs, but to go into business together. So that's really why we started to do it. And we thought we had some interesting process that perhaps maybe other filmmakers would like to experience. So we called ourselves the Third Floor after the nostalgia we had of staying up way too late, being the last ones there. And also we wanted to make it a little creepy and mysterious, kind of like the Psycho House, right, from Alfred Hitchcock. Long story short, we just wanted to found it in the image of what we loved about our camaraderie as a group, so an artist-driven studio. And that began the first of many challenges that we faced as a studio. Challenge number one was, well, how do you fund a startup when you're just making peanuts up at the ranch? Well, one answer is everyone lives in one house, my house. I still get mail from people. And then I went, and a second person from our team, Hiroshi, got a job at Sony ImageWorks working on Sony Pictures animation projects. And so I was a layout artist on Open Season and Surf's Up during the day, while all my coworkers were like, oh God, what a day, I barely got through it. I would be like, yep, about halftime for me, I gotta go to the office and start my real job, which is way more difficult. So it was a lot of dedication, but I'm very proud that we did that. I remember there was a filmmaker, Brian Singer, I got to meet, and he said, hey, so I love what you're doing. Stop everything. You got to quit your day job, Chris. I've got a movie called Logan's Run. It's a remake of Logan's Run. We're going to make it. It's going to be the biggest thing ever, and I want to lock up your team for like 3 years. And so I was like, oh, that sounds really serious. So I quit my day job, and then the project got canceled. So, so that was the real kick in the butt I needed, though, to just like commit fully to the company. Luckily, we were off to the races because we had done a few projects on our own. This is our very first project on the left, which was called Ocean Park. It still exists in Hong Kong. This is a renovation to basically like a Sea World in Hong Kong. And then Lost Odyssey is the first project of the creator of Final Fantasy outside of Square Enix. This is the first time he's working for Microsoft games. And so we did some of that work. And then we got a really big break to work on some of the Narnia projects around 2007. This was the first time that we started doing what we call Postviz now. And we're really proud of this because we got to use pretty rudimentary computers, but we got to do pretty epic scale scenes. And the only way we could make our computers not crash on us was to use these tiny little, what we now call origami characters. And so you can see here, this is now a process that we still use to this day.
From characters that were so lightweight and low res, they resembled origami. GamiViz, as in origami viz, starts with basic textured characters, an unlit environment, and representational shapes for props and VFX, capturing the action in stills and keyframe poses. There are a variety of techniques we can implement with this approach. For example, lighting the scene, adding textures to the character, and fully animating the cameras. Depending on preference, we can build in shading and lighting, add crowds, or forego those efforts for speed and turnover. We can also color code sections of the environment and characters, or imitate the on-set look more closely. GamiViz also allows for a built-in TechViz component, delineating measurements within the environment to help stunts and other departments quickly see scale and distances needed for the shoot. The basis for our GamiViz approach is that through scale, color coding, and minimal shape details, we can quickly define your shots, resulting in speedy and efficient sequence turnarounds. This can then evolve and build out relevant details and polish for further clarity across the production team.
So in 2006, actually, we worked on another very interesting project that I think is worth noting. This is with the great and powerful Robert Zemeckis, who we called Bob. Bob was so cool, he invited us up to Carpinteria, California, which is close to where he lives, so like almost all the way to Santa Barbara. And we got to do this, which is we took all of the performances from Angelina Jolie and the other actors that were performing in a very complex motion capture process, and we got to manipulate them inside of Motion Builder in a creative way and use this system we call the InterSense system that was used only by defense contractors and architects. Which is an ultrasonic tracking system. Basically, it was an expensive way to very accurately track a point in space. So they just slapped a sensor on top of an old VHS heavy camera body that was gutted. It really only was just for the dead weight. There was no lens or screen on it. It was just to have something that felt like it had weight. And Bob would there look at monitors on the wall and begin to kind of act out the cinematography while we performed all the movements, and then started to refine that as a cinematic moment. So you can see this is actually some of the footage coming off of those recordings inside Motion Builder. It's almost like playing inside of a video game engine. And it was really great just to see his eyes light up whenever he had a cinematic moment kind of appear to him as a happy accident. This is the beginning of what then later on became our experience on Avatar, the very first Avatar. We got invited in with lots of other whiz kids to support Jim on this mission to bring these virtual worlds to life. The difference here was he wasn't working with like pre-canned, pre-recorded performances. He was, of course, wanting to do those performances in real time live. So that's why I needed to wait a couple of years for technology to make that possible. But it led to moments like this where we could help him plan what they call the simulcam shoot. So this is where you're in an actual prop location, an actual environment in the real world, and to be able to see superimposed performances from the characters that were also being recorded live on a motion capture set off to the side. So he could direct the actors, he could move the camera himself, which he often did, and really just find those perfect compositions. This is all before Weta and the visual effects team that made it look so beautiful got involved. So this is, to my knowledge, I'm told this is the very first ever simulcam shot on Avatar that James Cameron manipulated. It was like they turned it all on and they were like, I hope he doesn't yell at me. I hope it all works. So here we have Iron Man 2, which was only made possible because of our experiences working on those films aforementioned, but also on a couple of video games that also needed to get that sort of live camera feel for their cinematics. So we used to work for Blizzard on StarCraft 2 and Diablo 3, and then later on Command & Conquer Red Alert 3. And all of those, we performed the camera work, the final layout camera work live. And so the story is that there was another awesome team prevising Iron Man 1. They finished their work, they did a fantastic job. I didn't know anyone at the very new Marvel Studios, so after it became a big hit, I tried to get a meeting with someone named Victoria Alonso, who is the head of visual effects at Marvel. And I got this meeting, I brought my laptop, I showed all our wares, and she's like, well, it's very interesting. I mean, I like to consider you, but we're making our decision tomorrow, and we really need to see what you're made of. So if you have time, show us what you can do. And I'm like, do you have any models? Do you have what do you want us to do? And she's like, I have nothing for you. We'll see you tomorrow. So I literally, it's like 4 o'clock or something in the afternoon, and I call back my brethren at the office, and I'm like, I think it's gonna be a late night. Let's try this. So we fired up a scene, we did some action, and we turned it into a test that is not this, but the next day she woke up, she had a test that had Iron Man fighting another Iron Man, and she said, well, Chris, if you can do that, I pretty much have to hire you for this project, but if you ever betray me or fall short of expectations, you'll never work in this town again. I'm like, deal. And that's what led to our legacy of contributions to the Marvel Universe. It's really those sliding doors moments where we went the extra mile for the filmmakers. So this was one of the scenes that we explored and laid out in Pitchviz in this virtual way, using a live camera where we're just kind of, I don't know, going with the flow and experimenting with what's the coolest angle, how can we transition from this area to over here in a seamless way without having to cut, perhaps. Okay, so to set something like that up, it used to be just a real MacGyver mess. You can see here, this is like what it looked like behind the scenes. So we tried to clean it up a little bit and formalize it into something. And so we finally made a video of that, and we were trying to coin a phrase that we would hope would be like a catchy industry phrase that would be become a standard. And this was that video. We call it virtual rapid prototyping.
We're going out to a motion capture stage, and we're getting real actors in motion capture suits. We're getting the director to come out and direct them, and they're actually going through the scenes and speaking the dialogue for the scenes, and then we're capturing all their motion into the computer and using that to create our Pitchviz scene.
Just like in live action, we do a number of takes, and he says, that's the best one. You know, Patrick will say, that's the circle take.
Good. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Okay. Yeah, moving on.
So we had apple boxes and gaff tape and simple marks so that they knew that that was a wall. You know, the best that we can do to sort of recreate that experience, the better.
The director is working.
So that leads me to my second challenge. So we were working for, you might notice, like on these Hollywood tentpole movies, these unusual pioneering projects such as Avatar and such. And so those customers were already sold, right? In fact, they were like giving us challenges beyond what we currently can do. So that we weren't worried about them calling us up. What we were worried about is there was such a misperception about what we did that people didn't even know that this was something that could be applied to like mere mortal film budgets. But they just assumed we were expensive, and we're like, no, we're whiz kids that do amazing things very fast and super affordably. But they thought, oh no, I gotta have a Marvel-sized project to do that. So I would go to like Sundance Film Festival and such, and meet the indie filmmakers and try to rile them up and just be like, come on, you know, like hire me to do your opening shot. I'll make it worth your while. Still to this day, it's hard to get folks to give you a call on that. But so what we did at this moment, instead of worrying about getting the message out ourselves, we decided to do the more benevolent thing and go to all of our competitors, anyone who is doing this in the industry, create an alliance where we realize that we're in this together, and put together grassroots conferences and other educational events where our society will together educate people on why this is cool, what is it, what are the new innovations, how does it work, how do you engage with this, and to all be standardized in some way. So I'm really proud of that. In fact, we started selling t-shirts that said "Fix It in Pre" to try to fund the little grassroots society. And by "Fix It in Pre," we also mean working in stages to help filmmakers save money along the process and to not backtrack. So we worked on standardizing some of the terminology. So there was like storyboards, and then animatics is like the animated storyboards or cut together into a reel. We would build worlds, and then like on Avatar, build out all of these locations so that the filmmakers could explore with their virtual camera. We built databases of all these assets that give us access to all of the parts that we might need for a standard film, including the actual film equipment, whether it's a camera or grip equipment. All of this is in the library. We have a virtual version of just about everything. I never have to make a rock or a tree ever again. It's all in what we now call the attic, because that's where you put all the valuable stuff, right? And you forget about it. When you do a virtual tech scout to figure out where you might want to shoot, even if it's in the virtual world or a digital twin of a scanned location, like a real tech scout, then you previs the shit out of it or mocap, so you basically stage the action. Then you can go back in with a virtual camera, see that action just like I showed you with Robert Zemeckis, and kind of experience it as if you're a documentary filmmaker in there and get those cameras worked out. Anything that actually does make it to editorial and is put into the cut is a candidate for an on-set shooting moment. And some of those moments are so complicated that they need what we call Techviz to explain it and to get the technical data out of the experience so that the filmmakers don't have to guess what lens, how far was it away from subject, what kind of camera did they use, all of these things, and to break it into layers. And then also there's something we call Postviz that I alluded to, which is just putting the previs elements back into the plates that are shot, so a rough visual effects pass, but using that in a creative way. Sometimes visual effects companies do this themselves. Sometimes it makes more sense for the previs team that already knows the filmmaker's sensibilities and has a handle on all the assets to just kind of slap it together. And this, so far, is the best way to win a visual effects Oscar. It's guaranteed. So what I love about this process is you can start very slowly and kind of ease into it, and as your film picks up momentum, you can apply more resources into the visualization process to get you ready for the main event. And so that's where all the money signs come from, is that at the moment of shooting, that's of course the most expensive time of the shoot. If you spend a little bit of cash in pre-production, then you will be more prepared for that, and you will spend a lot less money during the execution and the long tail of post, if it's one of those films. So what we did as the Previz Society is figure out what those terminologies are. So we have Pitchviz, we have Previz itself to get ready for the shoot, we have Postviz, and then we have, of course, traditional visual effects. There used to be a gap in time right here between Previz, where we'd say, have fun storming the castle out there, you guys. Good luck with that shoot. Oh, I wish you would take us with you. But there was that gap, so they would go out and sometimes, you know, not have missing information, have additional questions, want to workshop something again. So that's where we started sending like small teams out there. And what did the small teams do most of the time? They would break down all those elements and work out the Techviz, we call it. So Techviz is a term that's you know, pretty popular. And the real-time live version of that is what I call virtual production. Well, let's go back to Pitchviz, right? So Pitchviz itself is the idea of creating a moment in time or a teaser trailer for a project before it's funded or fully greenlit. And that's what Previz is great at, you know, give you a taste of the movie without having to be pretending to be the final quality. If you have to do the final quality, it's too expensive already for a pitch. This Pitchviz terminology, which I think we came up with, and I own pitchviz.com, so someone tell me if someone else came up with Pitchviz before me. But the idea is that this started catching on. Even established filmmakers like Glenn Wiseman really wanted to pitch their concepts to be like the coolest director going into the studio and saying like, I don't just have a script and a big idea and a pedigree, I have this. And it's a sequence. So this was the Pitchviz sequence, which later led to the remake of Total Recall. And we were just going hog wild. You know, he had all this awesome art department, concept work showing upside down multi-layer cities. We went in there with our supervisor and a small team and came up with this like crash moment where he has to take off the magnetic clamps and then basically plummet to the ground, and that idea made it into the teaser trailer, and it was like the defining moment that made everyone get all excited to see this movie. The power of Pitchviz, right? So often I tell filmmakers, it's easy. Insert script plus Pitchviz equals greenlight, and you're rich and famous. And this was something that happened across lots of pretty high-profile films, that they weren't greenlit until, you know, the filmmaker had this at their disposal to make everyone believe that this was going to be a special enough vision to fund at a high level. And even Steven Spielberg would on occasion need or want to Pitchviz his things. Partially this was for his own creative process, but he realized that he also could use it to get the whole entourage on board. So this is what we did for Ready Player One. This is only like a short clip of like a 10-minute long sequence that we did that was essentially the blueprint for the, well, you'll see. Man, we could watch it all day long. It's a fun sequence. So then this is what I mean by Postviz. This is a sequence that was done in one of the Marvel movies that we worked on in Atlanta. The live action actors were filmed in the parking lot outside with a green screen, or in some cases no green screen. They borrowed a few of the trucks and stuff from the local airport, so those are real, but there's no planes, there's no terminal. All of that was put in by the previous team. So this is what we were able to give for years and years to Marvel Studios in their screenings. After they had shot just a few live action elements, all the virtual bits and pieces would be put together into a sequence. And it's really a godsend for the editorial team and the filmmaker, because they're like, you know, like this. And you really, you know, you get everyone on board with funding the finishing work. Okay. And another example of Postviz is to work on the definition or the scoping of what the effects will look like. Because of course, as you know, all you Houdini experts out there, it takes a lot of effort to put together a simulation. But what if the filmmaker says, well, that's cool, but it's not what I'm thinking about? So maybe temping it in a sort of a previs way. Are we talking about a fire effect? Is it a magical thing? Is it red? What is it? You know, getting it kind of in the ballpark and then simming the effect, then going through the trouble of compositing it in some kind of clever way. Okay, so now we're at 2013. You guys still with me? Yep. All right. And we had won one of our first Visual Effects Society awards for outstanding virtual cinematography. Very proud of this work that we did on this sequence in the X-Men Days of Future Past, I believe.
Of what it was like to be in Quicksilver time.
So I did eventually get to work with Bryan Singer, and I came back to haunt him. And this is Casey Schatz, who's our head of virtual production, talking through all of the insane logistics that went into creating this sequence so that it actually did look like he was going slow motion running around the scene. Okay, so here's Casey on the set of Avatar 2, which he has been at ever since, and I will never see him again. But we love him, and someday I'll visit him on the set of Avatar 7. Okay, so I'm going to go to my next PowerPoint because I realized that if I put it all into one, it explodes. And we'll go to part 2. Don't worry, there's only 2 parts. Okay, I'm picking up where we left off. All right, 2016, right? Okay, so this is where it got really bonkers because we had this project, Beauty and the Beast, where there needed to be so much interactivity between the live action actors and all the virtual characters and props and dance numbers. And this is when we really honed in the post-viz process and the integration with motion control cameras. So here's Shannon, who is one of our amazing supervisors and now visual effects supervisor, explaining what she did on this project.
Even the practical trolleys were planned and then operated using timecode triggers. We used the virtual workflow to group the shots for maximum efficiency based on the technodolly's position in the room. Over 80 unique setups were shot over 6 shooting days by sending Maya camera curves to the technodolly. Key all-digital shots were designed to evoke the elaborate geometric dance routines of Golden Age musical cinema.
Yay. Good job, Shannon. She's amazing. So now that brings me to Game of Thrones. Now, Game of Thrones was like our accelerator for technology because we were there for over 8 years on 5 seasons. So the same crew kept on being built upon, and there was a lot of trust. After the first season, we were like an institution within the whole crew, and there was a line out the door with all the people wanting to get information about what was in the next director's mind, because we're always working, step by step with each of those directors right ahead of production. So this is what it looked like. We were concentrating with a focus on the TechViz process just to inform just in time, what does the set look like? How big is that dragon? Are we going to do a real flamethrower for the dragon, or is it going to be fake? All of these diagrams that you see on the left are explanations of those moments in time. You can see the previs, although rougher because we had to move so quickly, more of a GamiViz approach, was still very helpful to the filmmakers as a guideline, and the final sequence ended up being very similar. So we're really proud of the work that happened across those sequences.
Virtually.
You guys remember
Our
this
previous
sequence?
Team visualized the entire scene, working with the director to develop a cinematic look and build up that gradually transformed from the epic grandeur of a Kurosawa film into a more chaotic, truly horrific personal experience akin to Saving Private Ryan. With a very constricted time frame and almost no storyboards, we essentially created digital dailies for the larger action beats. After a blocking pass, we fine-tuned camera angles and paths of action to help tell Jon Snow's story and mapped out a complex puzzle of real and CG elements to depict fighting in front of the lens and beyond. Some shots were complete CG creations, and others incorporated photography that had been digitally enhanced to convey the look of a smoky battle at dawn. The previous team visualized each of the close calls for the one shot with the director, creating a 40-second continuous camera that will be replicated across the same beats and distance of travel. We did a detailed simulation to work out the effects moment by moment, so the in-camera material and the stunts, horses, infantry and weaponry being created in CG played together interchangeably anywhere in the view.
Oh man, I wish I could show you all the clips, but hats off to the original team. This is the core team, not including Eric Carney, the co-founder, who was just sitting right across from me from George. He was the supervisor of our team there. I guess he was too busy for the photo. But as a reward, and as their complete payment for the project, they got to take a selfie on the Iron Throne. So we learned a lot on that project, because not only because of what we did, but because we had so much interaction with all the other departments that came to support that. And when you're out in Northern Ireland and around the world, you kind of bond and you get to know what people are all about. So we took all of that and we poured it into our experience in The Mandalorian and beyond for everything that we've done with Lucasfilm since. This was a slightly different process where the previs is performed mostly by us in motion capture spandex outfits, but sometimes the stunt crews as well, also doing an amazing job. We got to basically kit bash the whole thing together. We edit that part of the sequence and show the director, and then we break it down into what are all the individual setups and help them with anything technical that they need to pull off in the volume against the, as they call it, against this wall, which is not as big as you think, and you have to use it in a way where you don't like shoot off in an oblique angle that makes the background look unrealistic. So that's a super awesome collaboration with ILM, and hats off to our partners there. Thank you for inviting us into the Lucasfilm universe once again. So we've been around this time, once Game of Thrones happened and once The Mandalorian really hit, the rest of the visual effects community and a lot of directors were like, what's this virtual production thing? And a lot of people wanted to know how it would work, does it apply to them? And so we ended up giving a speech at the Directors Guild of America in front of like 1,000 directors, so no pressure. And the first thing I reminded them was virtual production is not new. It's not like VR just dropped on our heads and was the new innovation. This is a 20-year or more discipline but it's only been limited to these really bizarro films that are one-offs with custom setups and all kinds of insane filmmakers trying to pull stuff off. So I got together with Casey again, and he and I collaborated while he was still under duress working on the next Avatar to put this little video together that I want to show you now to explain what we think is the standardized, like, fullest view of the virtual production process. Oh, nope, that's not it. This is Casey's work on Avatar 2. As you can see, he's been very crafty, even helped to co-design what they call the eyeline system, which is, I think it's called, eyeline system. So this is the reference for the actors. Essentially, it's a monitor moving around in exactly the same position as the original performance. You can have pre-recorded performances play against live performances as they run around each other. Anyways. This is the video.
An idea, a vision that will be realized by our director through a timeless craft that brings together many core contributors and departments. A vital creative partner early on is that of the production designer. Along with the cinematographer, they work with the director on establishing the mood and visual concepts. One recent advancement is virtual scouting, exploring a set before it's built or seeing your digital elements composited out in the field. But what if you could bring the location back with you? With LiDAR, millions of points can be captured in minutes to be explored virtually and facilitate asset creation. This brings us to the Virtual Art Department, or VAD. VAD will prep 3D environments for use in Pitchviz or on LED screens and is a vital extension of the production designer. Another art department function is set building, where new approaches still use tabletop models, only now you can scale up and virtually walk these designs. This all feeds into visualization, representing action and characters through rigging, animation, and even motion captured performances and props. Whether digital or not, work flows from here into virtual camera, or VCam. Anyone can operate the camera in the digital world, blocking shots that editorial can assemble. Based on those shots, the team can use Techviz to practice the shoot before going to set. All departments contribute to a unified filming plan. This helps grips and lighting with equipment and positioning, helps logistics with stunts, effects, and construction, and helps ADs set the most efficient order of operations. No technology can replace the magic of crew synergy on set. But the prep done ahead of time can provide a shooting plan and allow the director and crew to shine. After filming, Postviz can roughly line up photographed elements with CG elements. This is done in tandem with editorial and helps further visualize the shot content and design. VFX completes the magic with final composites, animation, and imagery that could not be photographed. Here, artists also can add to the LED screen content or progress it. Now the visuals are on screen and the director's initial spark has been realized. Stanley Kubrick said that if it can be written or thought, it can be filmed. And with a great crew and a little bit of planning, that's exactly what can be done.
So that's all one scene file inside Unreal. We just put all that stuff in there, and it's a living document. We keep on adding to it. So after and during Game of Thrones, it really launched a period of renaissance for our technology team and our development crew. We've ever since been in a perpetual state of innovation, constantly making tools that empower artists to sort of take the power of previs into their own hands. So we've developed these iPad systems that allow us to do a whole bunch of things in the virtual world that feel like more natural to these filmmakers. That actually starts with the VR Scout. So we have a system that allows us to go into any environment and not just fly around it, but actually get real world information from it, including writing notes and getting distances inside the world. You can even use lenses that are a part of a virtual camera inside of the environment. You can use it as a live production design tool where you can start to build and move walls around and kind of change proportions. Here's that virtual camera that I was talking about. This is our system called Cyclops, which is on the Apple App Store, so you can download it and use it in all of your films. It's really quite affordable. It's our gift to the industry, and it is an easy way to do simulcam. So you can basically superimpose any digital asset on top of the real world and run around and take photos of that or videos. It's really solid. It locks in the position so that the digital assets stay stuck to the floor and can be animated. We use this all the time on various productions, including across the Lucasfilm episodics. So this was Book of Boba Fett, where the crew loved to use it in various situations and even sort of tape it to the camera or use it as a reference as they're shooting various shots where there might not be a Rancor monster because they didn't wake up early enough for the shoot. So they needed to put it in as a temp. We've also experimented with real augmented reality glasses like these HoloLens 2 headsets where you can have a multi-user session where everyone sees the same Unreal session and you can walk inside of it as a one-for-one scale, so you feel like you're actually scouting the scope and scale of the set and make changes live, which has been very helpful. This leads me to challenge number 3 out of 5, which is that this is all going swimmingly and then all the productions shut down. Almost all of them, except for a few that needed to continue. And this was because of, dun 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 dun, COVID. Luckily, the government gave us this beautiful loan and we had X amount of money to use in a very short amount of time because the original legislation said you can spend this in 8 weeks or less, and if you spend it on human beings, then you might get forgiven for that money, as in you don't owe it back. So we started spending some money. And it was great. After 6 weeks in, 5 weeks in, they said, oh, psych, actually you have a whole year to spend it. But we'd already spent it all. But we spent it on a couple of things. One of those was to get ready for what later turned out to be a deluge of content creation because everyone wanted to be Netflix. Everyone wanted to have their streaming network because you couldn't rely on theatrical. So we became not only a pandemic survivor, we were a pandemic thriver and got a little bit of press and kudos from that. And everything was going swimmingly again. And I expanded the studio to over 500 employees and everyone was happy. And then, of course, the double strikes started to happen. And all the unions were striking or shutting down live action production temporarily, except for the animation union, because their contract was offset. So the beauty of this is that some of the money that we had spent from the government was to develop full-on feature animation capability. And so we did experiments. I was like green-lighting projects left and right. I'm like, who wants to direct a movie? You want to direct a movie? Your movie's greenlit. And it's like we were just, I should have asked you, sir. But we were doling out all of our cards. And that is what led us to the realization that hastily making a movie in a couple of weeks is not enough to really kind of be broadcast quality at that level. So we'd have to reinvest again, create a proper final animation pipeline in Unreal, in the Unreal game engine. We call that now TTF Anim or TTF Animations pipeline. And we decided, well, let's do a proper film that is testing this pipeline. We now call that film Sky Tribe. It's on YouTube. I also have the breakdown behind the scenes on YouTube, which looks a bit like this.
Rapid visualization of ideas has long been core to the third floor. As we now expand our work and tools into final animated content production, we knew these new capabilities had to come with the power to iterate across the process. This goal required us to create a pipeline to smoothly craft sequences real-time in Game Engine. We also needed to stress test every facet of production, and the best way to do that was with an actual piece of new animation. Skytribe. We wanted to design a piece that didn't have the type of modern video game look that is often associated with real-time rendering. Instead, we pursued a stylized, painterly aesthetic that helped us demonstrate the use of Game Engine to produce looks more akin to traditional animation. One of the beauties of real-time engine rendering is that it allows characters, environments, special effects, and other key aspects to be created and progressed within a shared sandbox. Camera positioning, timing, lighting, coloring, and texturing can be explored and re-explored in detail within and across scenes without waiting for standard turnarounds. We built our animation pipeline on the third floor's existing. We custom-designed shaders and render passes that open up the pipeline to a wide range of artistic styles. We also engineered flexible artistic tools that allow totally different looks, like Skytribe's deep, rich inks and textured line work.
Your eyes. They're so...
They're what?
Skytribe's...
So we learned a lot on that short, and it became our calling card to try to get an actual paying gig to do animation. While we were waiting for that to transpire, we kept working on the tools, and we built this fabulous rig that all the animators in the room, I'm sure, would just love to have a copy of, but you have to come work for me. And it's based on the Disney rig, but it's more flexible and works in Maya and Unreal. And here's a little test showing the character range of emotion that we can get out of this rig.
I don't have your map! You were just a mark. Go!
So in addition to the characters, of course, we developed a whole way to get the imagery to look as the way we wanted it, which was a very stylized look. You can't just slap a toon shader on it and make it look like this. You need to develop an inside Unreal compositing system. So we developed that. I don't think it's ever been done before. We call this Hummingbird. We also were able to do the compositing of effects elements, and we can just kind of place them in real time, so no rendering, no wait, just move shit around. It's really powerful. It feels like previs, but it's final in 4K or more. And what's beautiful about this is that you can also change things all the way up into the final moments of outputting the shot. You can put new framing elements in, we can change the camera angle, we can change the performance, we can change the lighting, we can change the rim light. All of these things can happen in real time. So towards the end, our compositing and finishing crew was just a small handful of people. They were doing 190 shots a day, tweaking these things. And what's great about this is we're seeing crazy good efficiencies across the board, because by keeping everything in engine, you don't have to go out to frames, you don't have to render elements, you don't have to have After Effects or Nuke just like have to think about how it's going to combine all those pixels. It's all in the frame buffer, it's all inside the GPU. Also, you can see a huge improvement in the overall, amount of labor that needs to be applied to this project. So I was able to hire, more experienced people who are able to be empowered to do more work. So we did a lot of different projects, and we were hoping that we would get a big project. We called that Codename Warehouse, and ultimately, on Tuesday this week, it was finally announced. So all this time I've been alluding to a project. I don't know if you guys have seen it on YouTube or whatnot, but it's called Predator Killer of Killers. And I'm very proud to show you the trailer if you haven't seen it before. This is just a taste of this animated feature film that we helped to propose. There was no script, there was no plan. We just went to the studio and said, hey, what if we did something with your franchise? Hey, all the other unions are striking. You can't do a live action movie right now. Let's do it in animation. And they took us very seriously and have been amazing partners. So thanks so much to 20th Century Studios.
Old enough now. It's time I tell you about the monster. We must kill it, or it will kill us all.
So, all hand animated, no motion capture. Woo! Yes, we have standards. So I would be remiss if, I advertise I want to talk a little bit about the future. I'd be remiss not to mention AI because I knew it would come up as a question anyways, so I'm just going to answer it right now. So we approach this very seriously. It felt like we were building the Death Star very slowly behind the scenes and in a clandestine way. So what we did is, we didn't know what was worth using and what was not worth using, just like everyone else. There's like 1,000 solutions overnight. So we did an exhaustive test. So luckily we had about 50 of our employees who are very AI enthusiasts. Ron knows what I'm talking about there, where there's a huge chat group that was like exploding with like, hey, did you check this out? What's that all about? And so we just put everyone to work and said, hey, you really want to help the cause? Test things, and then go back to our mural board and slap your work on top of this. And we ended up, basically having notes, and anything that was unethical or ripping off other people's artwork, we just was like, no, don't go there. And anything that looked like, oh, there might be some merit to this, I don't know, worth further investigation, we put a big old checkbox on it. And that really helped narrow the playing field. So we developed a process that is in its infancy right now, but that we're pretty excited about because it's the first AI process I've seen that doesn't disenfranchise the artists. What we're doing is we're just empowering our previs artists and our directors with the ability to ask for more, get more faster, have more options, and reduce some of the tedium behind it. So our process is more of a step-by-step, let's build it up, which is really the previous process. So instead of worrying about the detail of making the individual asset, what we're doing is we're doing more like the GamiViz, a little bit more of a rougher pass, and having the AI interpret that and make it prettier. There's no shame in that, especially when it's pre-production. So in order to create a like a character, we give it a whole bunch of our own imagery. So not ripping off anything off the internet, just saying here's some imagery. We'd like it to look something like this. We can generate a 3D model that is like very eerily similar to the resolution of what we would do if we were hand modeling this. We have an auto rigging system already, so we slap it into the auto rigger and all of a sudden it can move around. We can already start to use the low resolution model, but then through the camera, we can project the high resolution texture that was enhanced also by the AI. So we're really just staging the scene and getting a much better finished quality look for very little extra effort. So if you go beyond the animation of the characters, you think about environments. So we think that it doesn't make sense really to just say, hey, AI, make my scene look beautiful, because you ended up getting like just 2D artwork, right? So what we're doing is we're building 3D scenes step by step using placeholder geometry. So if we wanted a city, we would spray out a bunch of cubes and say, the city looks about this scale. And then through the lens of the camera that, again, we select, we start to define sections of the city, and we say, this is this part of the city, this is that part of the city, this is the background. And then we can apply prompts to each of those sections and say, well, it's a Gotham-like city. Or it's a different type of background. And then you can kind of discreetly change all of those aspects of it. So this is not in production yet, but it's something that we hope will be very empowering of our artists, because you know, they really need to be armed with all the best tools to conjure up ideas. I mean, we're already creating ideas on a daily basis, many shots per artist. We might as well allow them to do that at this fidelity in engine. You know, the fidelity of these reprojections is pretty good. It holds up from most angles. I think you can see in a minute where we're going to go up kind of high. You can see all of these details. And it's not until you actually going to go around at oblique angles that you don't actually feel that the geometry is accurate. But again, that started as a cube and was generated as a 3D, very detailed model. It's great because you can also change things late in the game where we're in the shot and we're like, okay, well, director decided not to make that, you know, a nighttime sky with no atmosphere, let's change the sky, or let's change the bus and swap in a vehicle. Instead of having to manually go in and parent stuff, we can do this with some prompts. So we're thinking this is really powerful. We did a little test with just a few artists just working for a couple of days. They were able to put this whole scene together using that approach. So, you know, we're thinking like if AI is going to be around, it's almost like our obligation to at least show a way where this can be controlled, directed, shaped by real human beings in a way which is iterative and can build upon those human ideas. And so, you know, this is the direction we're going in. You know, wish us luck. Hopefully we come up with a process that, you know, other people can use too. So the thing is that because of all this going on, and the industry's state in terms of the finances and our environment in our nation and in the world, everyone's nervous about cutting costs. They want to produce more content for less. All their bosses are saying that they need to do things more efficiently. They also need to speed time to market because you want to capture the zeitgeist. Like if some franchise is popular or some new concept is floating around in people's minds, you know, if you can get that to market while it's still in mode and still popular, then it will make more money. So speeding things up does make a lot of sense. And you know, films take a ridiculous amount of time to make, especially if you consider the long front end of pre-production and script writing. So we think that by using the Pitchviz process, like we did on Predator, Killer of Killers, you can put this whole thing up on Reels very quickly, get everyone on board, and then just go to town with all the artistry to make it happen. And that's what's going to allow enough budget to continue paying people good wages, and to be able to keep the budget sustainable so that it doesn't have to be a super tentpole hit. It just has to be semi-popular and make some money in order for it to not be a fool's errand. And we want our clients and the whole ecosystem to be successful too, because then it keeps all of us employed. So it's kind of a holistic ecosystem. And you want to also maintain that production value at the highest quality, because audiences don't care how much you spend on it. They're just going to judge it on the internet like, is it good? Did I like it? So I'm thinking that part of the solution is this idea that all of our tool sets are colliding and combining into this kind of digital center tool set, which I think is the closest is video game engines. So I think we're going to be actually losing some of the tools, DCCs and such over time, and that some of that functionality will be reproduced inside the game engine or made more accessible so that you'll have less tools but be able to conjure things up more like in the holodeck. So it's really about the quality of the ideas and the artistry and not so much the manual heavy lifting. So just like when we were going through that existential change as a previs industry, I kind of feel like we're going through that existential change as a entertainment industry right now, in gaming, in film, in the metaverse. All of these things are changing and people are scared, but it's also a time of great opportunity. And I don't know, perhaps I'm naive, but what we did with our brethren, our competitors in the previous society times, it could be what might lead us through as an industry to come out the flip side of this with a stronger industry. And that means less backstabbing, less competing for what's left in the industry, but more like rolling up our sleeves, reaching out a hand, trying to help other people, trying to help other companies, build alliances, and together we'll be able to get there faster. And so just like in one of my favorite movies, The Witness, that I watched in Clockwork Orange style when I was a kid, you know, barn raising, it takes a village. And I think filmmaking has always taken a village of so many benevolent craftspeople to come together around that auteur's vision, that original source material, and bring it to life in a new way. And that's what I think we're going to continue to do if we play our cards right, AI or not. All right? And so don't get all depressed about it. It is a scary time, but it's a time of great opportunity and change. And you know, I think by the time things settle out a little bit in the next couple of years, we'll start to see all the bright lights of all the rest of the work that needs to be done. Because now it's no longer just film and television and a game here and there. It's a great convergence of entertainment around whatever the future of the internet becomes. And all of the recent trends in experiential entertainment beyond theme parks, wanting to go to parties and events and pop-up attractions and immersive theater and Halloween shows and all of this stuff. This trend has already started. So much content needs to be created for that in pre-production, production, and post. So don't lose hope. Thank you. And I know it went kind of long, but I'll take just a few questions from Baby Yoda.
Check, check. All right. So if you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll take like a log here. I'll do 1, 2, 3 out the gate. And then if anybody else has a question while they're answering questions or while they're asking questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand and I'll keep a mental log of it.
Testing. Okay. Hi. My name is Gustavo. I'm a Pitchviz student right now, and going off of how I'd like to know how you would think is a good way for students who want to join the pre-visualization industry to get involved, even given the current downward state of the overall entertainment industry. Like, how can we? How would you say is the best way to join the industry?
Yeah, you know, before the industry downturn, I would have said, please look to our website. We have something called the Apprentice Program, or sometimes we call it the Fellowship. This is a great way to apply with your work, and we would bring you on basically as a sort of a trial artist for a while. We give you training, we give you access to not only our supervisors, but sometimes it culminates in working on actual shows, you know, in a way where your work is not absolutely critical for the delivery of the show. It's bonus ads, so there's no pressure. We're not like running a t-shirt factory or trying to get cheap labor. We're really just trying to give you like a real industry experience. So I can't do that right now because we're all like just trying to make ends meet right now, but we're going to get back to that as soon as things bounce back. Other than that, I would say that we do hire. All of our actual jobs are on our website, and please just like apply early. We're constantly reviewing things, even when we're not actually initiating the hiring. We're scoping for people. We're going to keep in touch with you. Outside of our company, there's ways you could partner not only with your fellow students and do like a group project and contribute and to start documenting like how your contribution as Pitchviz like made that filmmaker's vision come to life. It's great to have real case studies like that to show how you've actually worked in a production environment. Outside of school, I'm sure there's a million filmmakers and various lower budget productions in the indie space that would just love to have the luxury of an amazing Pitchviz artist, where they're maybe not as picky, but they will be delighted to have your expertise. So I would say start making friends, go to industry events for Film LA and some other groups and stuff, and just start mingling, and then I'm sure you're going to find people that you could dedicate a little bit of time to, and then they can become your testimonial. Yeah, other than that, hone your skills. Also consider if you're hitting a brick wall in film and television, maybe there's other areas of the industry that need some little viz. You know, viz is universal, right? There's theme park people all over this town because they all used to work for Imagineering and they didn't want to leave Pasadena. So they're still here, and they have little companies that are doing wildly entertaining things, and usually don't hire like you know, their own talent to do this. They'll need it on an as-needed basis for various projects that come in. So that's another opportunity. Commercial production companies maybe would like to have a little viz. So, you know, just start applying, do internships. This is more than you wanted to know probably, but you got it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the more you can show your tenacity, I'm a big fan of the internships and dedication. That's why I'm standing here today. I worked for free for the first couple of internships. I would work the night shift, do whatever. Show your, you know, don't get abused, but just show your dedication to the craft and how you're just willing to go the extra mile, and people will notice that. That's, by the way, newsflash, that's how like the whole film industry works. It's like those PAs on set that are like, yes sir, let me get that lens, okay, sure. You know, maybe they're a little naive, they don't know everything, but as long as they're like dedicated and they're into it, then people will like take you under their wing and say like, all right kid, let me show you something, you know, like, and that's how you get ingratiated anywhere really. Cool. Next question. Yes.
My name is Annette. I am a producing major, and
Yes.
I'm in post-production of my thesis film. But there are several feature films that I know somebody's working on, and you talked about a feature film, real life and animation. There is the film that I know somebody is working on. How could that person approach you? Because when you talked about it, it reminded me of that person. And that person has been working on, not me, on a teaser, 3D animation, and real life. It is scary, it's also funny, and it's a great vision, it's a really fun script. So how shall that person go about? You also mentioned, regarding that previous question, that perhaps that person should get together, maybe get involved with Gnomon, and maybe find some people who are interested in, for free, unfortunately, cooperate.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate?
Well, I would go to the Gnomon School of Visual Effects and find some great folks as a starter, right? But I mean, I feel like there really is no harm in contacting professional previs companies and see if they might be interested in filling in the gaps in their schedule with some extra labor. I mean, right now we're running things really lean, you know, so we don't have a lot to give out to folks. You know, I'm not on principle opposed to it, because you know, if you think about like, okay, so I have to run the studio of 250 some people, right? So there's the big juggernaut projects that come in, and we'll get like a lot of people on this one and that one. But when those end, it's like pieces of an iceberg. There's little gaps in time where I'm going to keep these people employed. They're sitting around, you know, they might be good candidates for working on something else. But I will tell you that there really is a lot of competition for that, that extra time. But that's why I say, but don't hesitate, reach out. We're really easy to contact. It's like info@thethirdfloorinc.com, like INC, or if you have a real business proposition, do business@thethirdfloorinc.com, and we'll get back to you right away. Same thing with anyone who wants to apply for a job, or we're always looking, and there's ways to apply on the website too. Thank you so much, and good luck to your friend. Yeah. It'll get a little easier soon.
Hey, what's up, brother? My name's Taj.
Hey.
Nice to see you. I was curious, do you have any intuition about like if blockchain has a power to be a disruptor, or if you have any insight about like how you can use blockchain for financing, fundraising, and also like back-end royalties and payments and stuff like that? Do you have any insight on that? Just curious.
I'm not a blockchain expert, but I do feel it is such an amazing innovation that is one of the pivotal pieces of the plumbing of the future internet, and certainly the metaverse. So being able to have the ability to authenticate originality and the copies of certain digital assets is super important. I'm so glad someone else figured it out and we didn't have to build that, right? It's like AI also is one of those other pieces of plumbing of the future internet that is going to need to be in place, because you can't just animate every avatar to have every possible response, you know. So AI is going to need to help personalize the experience so that everyone kind of gets the answer that they need in that moment, and it feels more engaging, you know. But you know, I'm a big proponent of where this is going, where if we are distributing directly into a digital environment, we're going to need things like a blockchain record, and that's kind of security for the original content creator to get paid to recoup on investment. And I know there's lots of other groups really trying to do this. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens. I mean, it's really not our arena, but I feel that with some of the moves that you're going to see in the coming years, with various metaverses beyond Fortnite, beyond Roblox, that you're going to start seeing more adults like get into it, and in a serious way, and that's when all that plumbing's going to be behind the scenes. Yeah. And anybody else? Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is about the AI that you're talking about, specifically the character art. You mentioned that basically you give the AI your concept art, and based on that it gives you a mesh, and after that the main job of the AI would be later to make it prettier. So what a character artist does in this process, specifically 3D character artists?
Yeah. Well, you know what I would say is that it has to begin with the character artist doing some sketches to start the ideation process. You can use AI to then, turn that into a 3D model, but it's only going to be kind of a low-res approximation of what you probably want. You take that base mesh, you still probably want to bring it into ZBrush or whatnot, build it out in all of its detail. But I'm thinking of a process where you're like the same character artist, concept artist is taking it all the way through, but just kind of dipping in and out of this tool set, which allows you to build on your sculpture, start seeing that applied with animation on top of it earlier than what you would have normally been able to do. I mean, I know it's kind of a paradigm shift, but for me, it doesn't feel that different because in Previz, we are always kit bashing things together. We're taking a little bit of reference and then we slap it on an object and then we put it in the scene and then we duplicate it a million times. And then, it's like, it's all just pieces of the puzzle. So I'm opposed to the, one prompt gives you result answer. That is not very artistic. I don't think that makes much sense. This is more about kind of building on that vision, and that's what people want. That's certainly what I want the industry to evolve into. Yeah. So,
Chris, we got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
I got one back here, and then I have one up front.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. Hey, I know you talked about the many facets of Previz, but as a set designer, where do you think the future of set designing will be? Do you think we should hone in on, the traditional SketchUp and traditional programs like that, or just switch to Unreal or Blender? Or
I mean, whatever works for you is there's no wrong answer, right? It's like, you're going into battle with your tool belt, and if you can quickly iterate inside of SketchUp, that's great. If you can find ways to iterate at higher fidelity and that is more intuitive to you in Unreal, great. Maybe you want to use both, for various situations. We don't use the same software and pipeline and workflow for every production. We have a bunch of different variant ways to do it. I do think it's wise to learn Unreal or something like it, because I think that ship has sailed, that there will be more and more functionality inside of a real-time game engine platform where you don't even have to expose like 90% of its capabilities. You can just use the power of the optimized GPU to do the things that you used to do in SketchUp, but just a lot more nimbly at a fidelity that you could never have reached inside SketchUp. So, but just remember, this is not about the tools. It's about the workflow for you as an artist. Like, how do you go through the thought process to create this set, this environment, this game plan? Concentrate on those. When you're still in schools, concentrate on those core skills, training your mind, training your eye to see the beautiful design choices. That's what a lot of people miss. You can't just become proficient in a piece of software and then get hired these days. You'll be hired because you do great work with any tool. And I think that, at least with our studio, that tool of choice is going to be Unreal pretty much exclusively in the next couple of years. So luckily, it's free. All right. Yes.
Hi, my name is Yu Xiao, and would you mind sharing a bit about the third floor different departments around the world, and especially for Beijing studio where I was from, and how the studio are related and connected, and what they do, and if I get the opportunity, if I'm from one department, to go between the different studios around the world.
Oh yeah, well, we're all one company. I mean, different technical tax codes and different things, government entities and whatnot. But beyond that, like spiritually, we're one company. And so there have been people coming from Beijing to LA to train and then back to Beijing, or we've sent folks out there to augment teams. This is very typical. Usually we are migrating wherever the filmmakers need us. These days we can do stuff so much, so powerfully work from home that a lot of our work can be an international team collaboration without having to leave the comfort of your home office or your bedroom or whatever. So that's the beauty of, I guess, the silver lining of the pandemic is that we're all prepared to work virtually. And so that it makes it even less important which border, which country, which nationality you come from. So that's good. Well, it's been a real pleasure to meet all of you, and thank you so much for your time and attention tonight, and take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you at home and you all here for spending time with us at Nomen. If you're interested in other upcoming events, please check us out at Nomen_school on all of our socials. And if you're curious about what Nomen can do for you, go ahead and hit us up at nomen.edu. We'll see you all next time.